And just on the record, everybody, we are being recorded. Thanks, Attorney Schellenberger made a point in one of the meetings I hosted with him that he wants. It's like, you should always mention we're being recorded in Maryland. So we're being recorded.
All right,
Just
ready to
in
go?
case anyone has any questions. Yes, we are, Madam
All
Chair.
right, so good afternoon. It is 12:05 p.m., October 18, 2024. This is the 21st meeting of the Baltimore County Administrative Charging Committee. The first order of business will be roll call, starting with me, Joan Harris.
Sharon Connect.
Dawn Deshawn Fewer.
Suing.
And the next thing will be to approve the minutes of our last meeting, September 13, 2024. Does anybody have any issues with those? Okay, not hearing anything. Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes, please?
Yes, it's a move that the Baltimore County Administrative Charging Committee hereby adopts the September 13, 2024 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, yeah.
It is unanimously passed.
You can work out the other one for the other.
And we do have some new business items today. First is the approval of the first quarter 2025 meeting schedule.
Yes. Okay. So let me just pull up my calendar here. Ignore. It's not being shown on WebEx right now. So I think yes, it's not being shown. So, but just to flag what we had listed before was, we did have January 3rd as a tentative date on the calendar, but it looks like every Friday in January, this room is available. I have the calendar up, so just.
And am I wrong, or had we started to do the second?
We flipped
Friday of
back
the
to
month.
the first because we've
Okay.
got November 1st and then December 6th
All right.
Yeah.
as our last two of this year.
So what I have down on the calendar is January 3rd, February 7th, March 7th, April 4th for the first quarter. Well, that's really the first third of the year, but
Okay.
we might as well just adopt
Yep.
the first 4 months because it will be here before we know it.
All right.
And if we
The
need,
first Friday, right?
First Friday of each month.
month.
and
is-
if we need to, we can throw in a one at the end of January if we have any 30-day or.
Yep, absolutely.
All right,
We
thank you.
have, this room is entirely free. I actually think, my hope is that the next, if there is a new interim, that they will keep their scheduling, which is heavily not on Fridays in this room. So we can keep doing that.
One more time, that's January 3rd,
January 3rd,
7th.
March 7th, April 4th, that's right. And so we'll need a motion to approve those
Yes.
dates.
It's a move that the Baltimore County Administrative Charging Committee will meet on January 3rd, February 7th, March 7th, and April 4th, 2025, all at noon in room 118 of the historic courthouse and by WebEx.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. It is unanimously moved, and that new schedule for the first quarter is adopted.
Great.
The next,
I just to be clear, I did share that with Major Gorman. So he, as a tentative, saying this is what we had listed, but I will confirm that for him. But it's always useful for his shop to know so they can try to knock out times.
and next will be a discussion of policy recommendations.
And just to give the context here, Don will handle most of this, but or at least introduce it. Sorry, I put a lot more there. Police Accountability Board, part of its mandate is to release an annual report by the end of each year that details trends in policing and any policy recommendations of the Police Accountability Board. And Dawn, being our member on both the ACC and the PAB, is also a member of the drafting committee. So one thing that we wanted to discuss today was any policy recommendations coming from the ACC that Dawn can relay to the committee and the board as a whole, since otherwise they don't really have a perspective on what issues you all are seeing in your meetings and in your review.
And we have been sort
We
of
have
keeping
a
track of
started a
things,
running
right?
list. Response time to citizens. So if a citizen reaches out to a county police officer to ask them a question about an investigation or anything, to have it in the manual that there's a turnaround time for that required. Simultaneous constituent or citizen complaints and administrative complaints, why aren't they rolled into one? and a policy regarding offering medical attention with pepper spray incidents. That's the 3 I have from our running list so far.
Could you explain the first one, time to respond?
I think in the field manual, there is no hard and fast rule with if Ms. Harris reaches out to Officer Smith asking a question about an investigation, there's no time defined that Officer Smith has to respond to Ms. Harris by a certain time.
And I think also that was the context of when an officer is actually involved in the investigation of an accident or a crime or whatever. And there's, the citizen is also maybe a victim or a victim's family.
Or
And
needs information for something legal or medical or anything, insurance.
All right, if everybody here is comfortable with that, what I will do is I can draft language built based around those. And since our next PAB meeting is ahead of our next ACC meeting is before the next PAB meeting, I can have those written in sort of formal language, and I'll send them out ahead of time. Then we can discuss at the next meeting to see if the language is something that you're comfortable recommending to the PAB.
I think we should also explore being able to release more information about complaints, maybe even demographics, like whether, or both sides, whether it be on the accused officer or the person complaining.
So that's one where I don't necessarily know if it's a policy recommendation. Here's the reason why I say that. Very different jurisdictions have interpreted the confidentiality language differently. So I know Baltimore City, for instance, includes the zip codes of where the incidents occurred, I believe is what they're including in their annual report to say X number of incidents happened in these zip codes. I can always discuss with the Office of Law, like what can be put out there, because on the one hand, we want to be cognizant of the confidentiality requirement, but at the same time, I understand that there may be information like the precinct, for instance, that wouldn't be considered confidential, like the precinct where the officer is located at. I'm not sure about demographic information, but I'll talk to Alec about that.
Even if it's in the annual report, so not monthly, like we had 20 complaints and 10 of them were submitted by a female, 10 were submitted by male. If we could get it for the whole year, just to get an idea, if it's something that's in BC's stat already that it's being reflected, I think it would be important to carry that over into what we report.
Right, and that's also one thing too, is potentially looking at what BC Stat has already,
Right.
and just incorporating that into the report.
Right.
Because I think that might make, because that's so aggregate that it's not going to reveal anything. Like we had 2 complaints this month, and they were both,
Right.
And this is the race of the parties involved, and this is the gender, and this is the location, where you could probably infer that. So. But yeah, I think that's more of a internal sort of conversation than it is a statutory one, because it's really like each jurisdiction is going to draw slightly different interpretations.
Well, I don't think it's a bad idea to put it in the statute, everything that should be released. Like, I really think they should not leave it up to interpretation for each jurisdiction. It would make things cleaner if everybody was doing the same thing.
That's possible. Yeah, that's a fair argument. I also wanted to mention, while we're here, it'll be on this screen, but it won't be it won't be shared, but just it's on for here. People who are in this room can see the annual report as it is right now. I'm just ignore my scrolling because it's a lot of the same stuff, but the policy recommendations that the nominating committee has recommended so far, and I'll send these out to Dawn, you and other members of that before we meet, but we're re-upping the tolling 1 year and 1 day deadline recommendation. This is one that the AG's office has already opined on, but put in the statute that complaints withdrawn by a complainant are investigated by a law enforcement agency, which would then mean they go to the PAB or ACC. And then what the other one is, this overlaps the ACC, remove departmental accident cases from the jurisdiction of the ACC, except in cases where a complaint is filed by a member of the public against an officer. And the argument there is that it doesn't appear as though the statute intended to have all departmental accidents covered by this legislation, because I don't think that they were drafting this law initially as a, with that in mind. I think it was much more the cases that are involving police misconduct with a member of the public. And I also think it opens up some issues about that dark can require additional training. That's not considered disciplinary. But since it involves a member of the public and it involves potential misconduct, it has to go to the ACC, which then often leads to discipline for something which is not necessarily intended to be disciplinary. But at the same time, keeping an option available for if a member of the public files a complaint and says, I got T-boned by this officer who didn't have their lights and sirens on, and I was going and following the traffic laws, well, then it could become. So, I mean, ultimately, and a big part of this one being included is just that there is a lot of inconsistency between jurisdictions on this. A lot of jurisdictions are not sending departmental accidents, or were not when we had the governor's office had a forum about this last year, and they basically said the feedback from various jurisdictions was it is all over the place. Some jurisdictions are taking it like we are, which is let's interpret the law as expansively as possible to avoid, cases being deemed wrong, for lack of a better word. But some jurisdictions, they're not sending them to the ACC. Some jurisdictions, the ACC is, I think Montgomery County's approach is to say we're not going to hear them. So they're just like saying that we don't interpret this as being under our jurisdiction. So similarly, as if Internal Affairs sent a case that was basically like all internal, no member of the public was involved in it to us, and the ACC determined we don't have jurisdiction over this, and send it back. So there definitely needs to be clarity on that point. I think whether or not it's just it's saying yes, these do go to the ACC, or no, they don't. The language of the statute's not clear on that. So
Okay.
that's the.
I don't like hearing so many cases.
So that's what I was thinking about too. However, like Dark's punishment, the training is still going to stand. Even if we say there's no administrative charges, whatever Dark has said will still happen. It just won't be in
Would
there.
their discipline still fall under the matrix if there is discipline?
I think that's also potentially the way to do it is to basically say that,
The officer as a
or in cases where a complaint is filed by a member of the public against an officer, and when the agency seeks to discipline the officer for a departmental accident. So basically saying it's a complaint or when the officer is going to be disciplined for it, then it has to go to the ACC. If it's something where they don't believe that they should be disciplined, but they believe they need to undergo training, because training is not considered to be disciplinary, then it wouldn't come to us.
Before this whole framework, was the department disciplining officers? They did have a craft that was preventable.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what their approach was to that. I can follow with Major Norman on that. This is one of those strange parts of the law where it's not excluded from the statute, so it falls under the purview of the ACC. But at the same, and the commission has adopted language around it. But I also am not sure if it was ever the intent of the legislators, or at least it was not their focus. But
I would be interested if Dark, whoever's on that committee, would come and maybe present, because there are some that it's like that was not the officer's fault, and they're saying
They always.
it seems to me like whenever the officer is involved in something and any damage occurred, it's automatically their fault, and that's
I can
not I don't understand that.
So that is, they would not come to the ACC if Dark did not deem them to be at fault.
No, that's what I mean. I'm curious about how they find things at fault. But,
Okay, yeah.
I mean,
Yes,
we're all like, that's not their fault at all.
right.
Sometimes it's the citizen's fault.
Okay, I can follow up with Dar.
Is there something we're missing that like, they know this grand thing that none of us have thought of?
Yeah,
that
I think it would
really
be
is their
useful.
fault?
Yeah, I mean, as long as this is the law, and it will be
Yeah.
the law at least until a year from now, October of 2025 is probably when the change would take effect. If they were adopted by the Maryland General Assembly, it's probably worth having that conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, anything else on that, Henry?
Not for me.
What's the status of our new ACC member?
Great question. So Ms. Tamisha Peterson was appointed. She will be doing training October 28th through November 1st in Sykesville. And when she is done, she will be seated with the ACC starting in October or November. So this will be the last meeting without her. I did have one more thing, and that is just the dates of upcoming trial boards for everybody's record. That obviously will be probably there may be new ones by the time that we have. I should really not have that up on the screen. So you can watch them. I don't believe they're available for review by the public, but there is a bit, I believe they can be watched by anyone.
Public safety building, they broadcast it in the lobby. I think it should be made more.
Yeah, so let me just pull it.
I mean, I even suggested for our purposes, like if we could get a link to watch, just so we can see how something that was appealed to a trial board that we decided played out, and that didn't get very far, so.
Yeah, I think there's logistical questions of making sure that it's like it's open, people can go watch it in the lobby, but at the same time, I think that
Well, it's
there's not any space. The problem is they have very little space with the actual trial boards.
it's hard to say something's open to the public when it's restricted from the public.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right, so there are 7 pending trial boards. One is on October 22nd to 23rd next week. One is on November 6th, November 18th, November 25th, December 2nd, December 17th, and January 7th. So that is, we've gotten those all scheduled. There will probably be additional ones. Obviously, after, every couple meetings, there will be additional ones, and I will report the dates on those.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
One thing I wanted to bring up, and that is if any member finds themselves given notice of or served with a subpoena to testify in a proceeding, your first call really should be to Alex Stathakis, our counsel. And then he will guide you through what to do on that, because it has happened. And that was my first call. So, and that ended up resolving on its own. So, but it could happen to anybody.
If you're
on the
subpoenaed
committee.
in the capacity as an ACC member, to be clear, not if you're subpoenaed for some other unrelated.
Right. I meant as a
Right.
member of this committee. Okay. And anything else? All right, can we please have a motion to enter closed session so that we can conduct business of investigatory file review?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
And
right.
we are in closed session.
Let's move. Oh. Start video back on the record. Got that. Oh, it's been recording. It's just been recorded. It's in breakout session. I don't think it recorded any of that. We'll find out. I'll walk it with Kelly, and we may just have to edit the video and cut it down, but otherwise, I think,
We're back in open session?
yeah, I don't think it records any breakouts.
Okay, so welcome back into open session. It is 10:04. Just as a reminder, we're going to, our next 2 meetings for the remainder of 2024 will be November 15, same time, same place, December 13, also same time, same place, and by WebEx. Unless anybody has any other business, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, be it so moved that the Baltimore County Administrative Charging Committee hereby adjourns until November 15th, 2024, at which time it shall meet at 12 p.m. in room 118 of the Baltimore County Historic Courthouse and by WebEx.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thank you.
Stop recording.
Good time.